Hello, sixth graders. So today we're going to tackle lesson 2.2, which kind of goes with yesterday's lesson of greatest common factor, but it's called least common multiple. Okay, we're going to put something in our interactive notebook. So we're going to our interactive notebook pages. These beginning pages, we're going to kind of get rid of. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages here that we don't need. It's not something I'm going to use with you. So if you take out those 6 pages, I think it's going to save you. Whoa, something's happening there. It's going to save you from having to flip through those all the time. So these first 6 pages we're throwing away. And so now you have this page. Notice that this one is blank. And this next one is already got the answers filled in. We're going to use this one to save ourselves a little bit of time. So this blank one, you can also cut out. Oh, sorry. And we're going to throw it away. And then this one, finally, this is the one that we're going to cut out and use today. So I'm going to take that, cut it. And then my packet then still has my cover sheet on it, but now when I open it, I'm looking at this page here, which we'll use in a day or two. Okay, so that's going to go back in my folder. And then this page, we're going to cut out. So you've got to cut out all the way around this thing. And it's going to be a little foldable that goes in our notebook that reviews both GCF, which we did yesterday, and least common multiple. So yesterday we talked about greatest common factors, which is the largest factor that 2 numbers have in common. Today we're going to talk about least common multiple. So least meaning the smallest, common meaning they share it, it's one they have similar. And then today is about multiples instead of factors. Multiples are when you count by a number. Factors are what divides evenly into a number. Okay, so I just kind of cut out around my star. Kind of looks like a star. You can do that too. And then we're going to go to our notebook and find our next available page. So here was our GCF work. And then I have a page here. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the back of this one. What we are going to actually end up doing later, you can like fold all these pieces in. This one is truly a foldable. So the only part that really gets glued is this pentagon. And the rest of it just ends up being able to be folded. Okay? So if you need to pause the video to get that glued in and ready, you go right ahead. I'm going to go ahead and keep going because mine is ready to go. But you feel free to pause until you're ready to keep going. So we're going to kind of work our way around the circle. And this reviews, like I said, several of the things that we talked about yesterday. So let's I'm going to grab a highlighter. Start over here. We talked yesterday about prime numbers and composite numbers. So prime numbers are whole numbers with exactly 2 factors, one in itself. Composite numbers have more than 2 factors. And we have a whole big page in our notebook now of a reference for what those are. We talked yesterday about factors. Those are numbers that fit into another number evenly. And it's kind of like the things you multiply to get a number. So for 12, it's 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. They've listed them in order from small to big. I usually list them with their multiplication partner. Today we're going to be talking about multiples. And multiples, it says, is the result of multiplying a number by an integer. But to me, I just like to call this counting by a number. Okay, so if you think about that, look at here. If we're doing multiples of 12, it just means we're counting by 12. 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, and you kind of get the idea. You're just counting by that number. And so what it means multiplying by an integer, well, this first one is 12 times 1, then it's 12 times 2, then it's 12 times 3, And so you're just working your way up the integers. So we also yesterday, if we kind of spin this around, talked about the greatest common factor, or the GCF. And this is the greatest factor shared by all of the numbers. And then today, the new thing is least common multiple. Okay, this is the new part today. So the least common multiple of two or more numbers is the smallest multiple shared by all the numbers. And so we're going to do two examples. So, and for both of these things, you can do list method or the grid method in the middle, and we're going to get to that last. But let's just do two numbers and try the list method, because some of you yesterday really liked the list method. So let's say, for example, we were going to do, what do you want to do? Let's do 12 and 20. You want to? So let's say we were going to look at 12 and 20. Okay, and so the GCF, if we're going to do the list method, so 12 would be 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. For 20, we would say 1 times 20, 2 times 10, and 4 times 5. And so if we're looking at these factors and we're looking for the largest one that they have in common, they both have a 1, they both have a 2, and they both have a 4. And those are the only things they have in common. So the GCF is going to be a 4, right? And now for multiples, we can list out multiples as well. So let's do, see how we can kind of division this off. So let's do multiples of 12. So we had 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84, and they go on forever. And that's the thing with multiples. They never stop. Multiples, when you're counting by a number, they just keep going and going and going and going. So there's multiples of 12. And now let's do multiples of 20. So 20 times 1 is 20, 40, 60, 80. And I'm going to stop there because I've already noticed the smallest one they have in common. So LCM is the least common multiple. It's the smallest one they have in common. And so look here, I see a 60 and a 60. And so between 12 and 20, the smallest multiple they have in common is a 60. So that is the two answers that we would need for 12 and 20. Their GCF is 4 and their LCM is 60. So the biggest factor they have in common is a 4. The smallest multiple is a 60. We can also do that with this grid method. And they've kind of got an example here for us. Now, they didn't finish drawing the grid for some reason. I like it to look like a tic-tac-toe board. So I'm going to kind of make it look like a tic-tac-toe board. Okay, they kind of do a box around it, but the tic-tac-toe board makes more sense to me. So let's look at their grid. So they had an 8 and a 12. They divided by 2 and got 4 and 6, because 8 divided by 2 is 4, 12 divided by 2 is 6. Then they're going to divide by 2 again. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. And they got it down to 2 and 3, and then they were stuck, right? You can't go any further. So when you have your grid method, if you multiply the left, and what we said is GCF is on the left. Okay, so the GCF is 2, and there it is. 2 times 2 is 4. And then here's the cool thing about LCM. LCM begins with an L. And so if you do an L on your grid, whatever is on the left and the bottom in that L shape, you multiply that together to get your least common multiple. So for 8 and 12, the GCF is 4 because 2 times 2 is 4. But the LCM is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 3 is 24. So the L shape is our LCM answer. So if you do the grid, you get 2 answers at once, which is very efficient and kind of cool. Whereas if you do the list method, you have to do 2 separate lists of 2 separate things, and that can sometimes take longer. Okay, so that's what we're looking at today, LCM, and we're going to try to do list method and grid method. And so let me kind of get you started on some practice in your journal, and we'll kind of review this together when we get there. I'm going to kind of leave that there. If you need to pause the video to copy any of that down, you can. And we'll go to the journal then. I'm just going to fold these up in mine so that they stay put. And then in your journal, okay, we are on page 57. Okay, and let me grab a Post-it so I can write this down for you. The part that I would like you to work on page 57 is number 2. Okay, so number 2 has LCM of these things, and that's least common multiple. You're welcome to try the list method on these if you want, to try just listing out what those multiples are and finding the smallest one. And then we move on to the grid method. And on the grid method page, this is page 58. Okay, I would like us to try all 5 of these. Okay, so that's what I'd like you to try on your own if you have time right now. So page 57, and I said just number 2. And then page 58, numbers 1 through 2. So basically that whole page. There's more pages here today, so if you get time and want to work ahead, you can. We are going to talk about a couple of these word problems, and we may get to math boxes. This finding landmarks page is probably going to be, we're going to probably hold off and use that on a different day, okay? All right, so until I see you again at 9 o'clock, would you please try to look at page 57 and 58 using either the list method or the grid method to answer these questions, and we'll review it together when I see you at 9.